All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're taking the complex political shifts of 19th century Europe and treating them exactly like what they were, a high-stakes, cinematic, geopolitical thriller. Forget everything you know about dry, dusty history lessons. We're looking at a continent that is about to completely tear down its ancient borders, overthrow kings, and redraw the map with blood, iron, and a brand new, highly dangerous idea called the nation. Here's our master plan to conquer this chapter. We'll hit the dream of nations, sparking the French Revolution, the Napoleonic Code, the conservative counterattack, Mazzini and his secret societies, and finally, the hardship and revolts. Let's go. Part 1. The Dream of Nations and a Shattered Europe Waking Up. So it's 1848, and the French artist Frédéric Sorrieu captures this epic awakening. If you look closely at the foreground, he literally paints the shattered remains of crowns, scepters, and old absolutist institutions just thrown in the dirt. It's like the ultimate symbol of breaking free. Meanwhile, you've got this endless train of people from Europe and America marching away from tyranny, paying homage to the Statue of Liberty. Now, sure, it's a utopian vision, a dream that was pretty unlikely to exist right then, but it absolutely nailed the liberal hopes of the time. And speaking of those shattered crowns, you're going to want to lock this definition into your mind for those one-mark board questions. Absolutism. It's a centralized, militarized, and heavily repressive monarchical government with absolutely no restraints. This unchecked power, that is the ultimate villain of our story. Moving on to Part 2, Sparking the French Revolution, the Catalyst. Look, every great thriller needs a massive, explosive catalyst. For Europe, that spark was the earth-shattering storming of the Bastille in 1789. The revolution did something totally unthinkable at the time. It brutally and permanently ripped sovereignty away from the absolute monarchy and dropped it directly into the hands of French citizens. Literally overnight, the people became the nation. But here's the real challenge. How do you actually make a group of random, disconnected subjects feel like a united nation? Well, if you get a question on how French revolutionaries forged a collective identity, you're going to want to deploy these exact points. They introduced la patrie, the fatherland, and le citoyen, the citizen. They tossed out the royal standard for the new tricolor flag, centralized the administration, scrapped internal customs duties, and pushed Paris-spoken French as the common language. Seriously, it was a total masterclass in nation building. Part 3, the Napoleonic Code and rewriting the rules. Okay, take a mental screenshot of this right now. If your board exam asks about the Civil Code of 1804, also known as the Napoleonic Code, framing your 5-mark answer with these exact actions and impacts is going to show you truly understand Napoleon's administrative genius. By wiping out privileges based on birth, securing property rights, and abolishing feudalism, he basically destroyed democracy in France but made the administrative system incredibly rational and efficient. He even exported these laws to places like Switzerland, Italy, and Germany, a real game changer. Which brings us to Part 4, the conservative counterattack. The old world strikes back. Because, history is almost never a straight line. By 1815, the empire strikes back. The old regimes fought back hard, mainly because of this massive societal divide. Think about it. On one side, you have this tiny, incredibly powerful landed aristocracy. They owned vast estates, spoke French for diplomacy, and were all tied together by marriage. On the flip side, the peasantry, the massive bulk of the entire population, many of them still trapped as serfs in the East. The old monarchies were desperate to preserve their wealthy, privileged bubble against the rising tide of the masses who, had just gotten a little taste of equality. And that leads us straight to conservatism. The delegates at the Congress of Vienna in 1815 were completely driven by this philosophy. They wanted tradition. They wanted established institutions. The Treaty of Vienna became their ultimate weapon, specifically designed to restore those overthrown monarchies, like the Bourbon dynasty in France, and set up buffer states just to contain any future French expansion. But here's the thing. This new conservative order was absolutely terrified of freedom. Just look at the muzzles on everyone's faces in this 1820 caricature called the Thinkers' Club. The conservative regimes set up in 1815 were deeply autocratic. They despised dissent. They heavily censored the press, books, plays, anything that even whispered about revolutionary liberty. They were literally trying to gag the spread of nationalism. Part 5. Mazzini and Secret Societies. The Underground Resistance. But as they say, you can't kill an idea. Notice how this geopolitical chain reaction accelerates from sweeping administrative reforms right into a crushing conservative crackdown by 1815. This intense repression left liberal nationalists with zero options. It forced brilliant, passionate revolutionaries like the Italian Giuseppe Mazzini completely underground by the 1830s. And Mazzini, he wasn't just some philosopher. The guy was a tactical operator. Exiled at just 26, he built his own transnational underground networks, founding Young Italy and Young Europe. His whole master plan was driven by one core belief, that God intended nations to be the natural units of mankind. He fought relentlessly to smash that patchwork of small kingdoms and forge Italy into one single, unified republic. And he was incredibly effective. I mean, when Duke Metternich, the Austrian chancellor and the actual architect of the conservative Treaty of Vienna, calls you the most dangerous enemy of our social order, yeah, you know you're a legendary rebel leader. Mazzini's vision absolutely terrified the conservatives because it threatened to unravel their entire continental empire.
Part 6. Hardship and New Revolts, the boiling point.
Now, high-minded ideological wars don't usually start revolutions all by themselves. If your exam asks why popular revolts surged in the 1830s, these points right here are your exact ammunition. We saw an enormous population boom that led to mass migration right into overcrowded city slums. Small producers got completely wiped out by stiff competition from cheap machine-made English imports. And the peasants? They were starving, crushed under lingering feudal dues. Hunger, overpopulation, widespread pauperism, it completely shattered the conservative peace. The people literally had nothing left to lose. Europe was fundamentally fragmented, a shattered puzzle. And with Mazzini's underground revolutionary uprisings ultimately failing to unite Italy in 1831 and again in 1848, the strategy had to change. The immense burden of unifying these fragmented states fell squarely onto the ruling elites, specifically King Victor Emmanuel II of Sardinia-Piedmont. They started to realize that unification wasn't just some romantic dream. It was a real avenue for massive economic development and political dominance. But they knew they couldn't do it through secret societies anymore. No, they had to achieve it through war. And that brings us to the epic cliffhanger of our historical thriller. If absolute repressive power couldn't crush the idea of a nation, and passionate underground secret societies couldn't quite unify one, what happens when a powerful kingdom decides to weaponize that nationalism and use outright war as its ultimate tool? I'll leave you to ponder how the map of Europe would ultimately be redrawn, not by romantic treaties, but by blood, iron, and artillery. Lock in these facts, study hard, and you're going to crush this exam.